waste my life. I don't wanna waste my time. I don't wanna waste my life. Living in this world.
On the beats.
It's just some things, there's no going back. You know what I'm saying?
jwoodbeats.com.
Yeah, I'm not the one with the issues. I hear you. Now here is your tissue. If I'm moving too fast, I might have to dismiss you. And it's really too bad, cause I really will miss you. But I'm not the one with the issues. I left him at church when I made it official. I murdered the curse with my own benediction. Left God in the dirt, call it death of the fiction. Superstition will be served in eviction. Competition will be left in the ditch. Oh my God, it's too damn hot in this kitchen. The fishes of men are now swimming with fishes. Oops, my bad, I guess I'm moving too vicious. Verses sold, I gotta put them on your wish list. Bless my soul, cause I'm dodging your little hit list. I guess you know, you just lost another witness.
Gotta let me go, gotta let me go, gotta let me go. Gotta let me go, gotta let me go, gotta let me go right now. Gotta let me go, gotta let me go, gotta let me go. Gotta let me go, gotta let me go, gotta let me go, I'm out of here. I can do anything, fuck your opinions and energy. I finally got the epitome. My biggest hindrance was God can't do nothing but fail. Greater is me. I never needed your deity. All of this human capacity. When it gets rough, I can pick myself up and prevail. Cause I don't need anything other than people who fuck with me. Good business, it starts with good company. That's why your boy is obsessed with community. Cause greater is we. We can create opportunity. Doing what God never did, cause a God never could, but a people is all we need. Gotta let me go, gotta let me go, gotta let me go, yeah. Gotta let me go, gotta let me go, gotta let me go right now. Gotta let me go, gotta let me go, gotta let
Welcome in, everybody. Happy Sunday. As Dale said, I hope you are all having a positive and progressive day. Oh man, welcome in. It's so many to see so many of you here on these Sunday mornings, the Sunday afternoons for us. I know for Muttley, it is literally 6 p.m. Like it's
Wow.
like, you know,
Thank you for getting up.
right? Like hanging out, you know what I'm saying? Yes, so many people. Oh man, I see Suzanne in the chat, Sharon. Oh man, 21st Century Mind. Welcome back. Yes. All right, man. Supreme Scientist. I love that name. So many great people in here. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for our Sunday sessions. Of course, if you haven't already, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that alert notification bell. And as you will hear us talk about this community throughout this entire session today, consider joining, supporting, or connecting with this community channel or content in any way that makes sense to you. And of course, don't forget to check out the merch because it's dope, you know. All right, so I have a few acknowledgments and then I'll step aside a little bit. The first one, of course, which I've been talking about all week, I meant to remind you to get my wedding ring off the windowsill because it is like I felt it as soon as my hand went up. As soon as my hand up. Good to have you here. But I've been, listen, if you're interested in really helping build community, a great way to do that is to start hosting some of these Discord groups. Getting involved, pick a group that makes sense for you, that you think there's some interest around, or that you think that there should be some interest around. Start advocating for it and recruiting for it and build some conversations around it. And we'd love to create a channel for you there on the Discord server so that we can continue to build vibrant, thriving, just progressive community. Also, and let me get ready to share this. Also, tell us where you're watching from. And we've started doing this more, and I've showed you all one version of this map, and now I want to show you a different version because this just paints the picture a little better. So this little blue dot, this is where we are. We're in Dothan, Alabama. That's where we're located. For any of you who knows where that is. But as you can see, it's lonely. Ain't nobody. Look at that. We're the only little dot in our section, or at least that's what it looks like, and that's definitely what it felt like when we started doing this. But then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to zoom out And so you zoom out a little bit, you know, we've started sharing and we've started building community, and community has started expanding a little bit. And then you zoom out a little more, and this map is starting to look a little less lonely. And then you zoom out some more, and it's like, holy snap, okay, we're all up and down the coast. You know what I'm saying? And so then we keep on zooming out, and some of you will probably see some spots where you are, right? But then, you know, instead of just zooming, let's zoom back in, and then let's move around a little bit. And then you begin to see, like, holy snap, it's everywhere. We are, like, we're growing everywhere. And that's why I like this map, because this map gives us a lot of perspective of the work we're doing, even though right now the majority of our work is just, or I say in, but I don't want to make it feel like that's somehow less than. But let's keep on zooming and moving around. That's South America. That's Africa. Wow. This is Europe. I did not expect this. As a black dude from Alabama, I did not expect to have so many dots in Europe. So that's just beautiful. We even got a dot in Russia. Man, like we got dots in South Korea, the Philippines, Australia, New Zealand, and who knows what this little tiny little paradise is over here. We got our first dot in Hawaii. So that it's just been really cool to see this type of growth, man, and to see how much we're expanding. And so just to kind of, so you can read up about the place on, that's a good idea. Yes, that's a great way to learn. I love that. I love that. Thank you all for platforming that. That was perfect. But yes, and we're going to start adding to this map different things, because right now this map just has anybody who's expressed any interest in supporting what we're doing. And so that's everywhere you see those are people who are in support of what we're doing on this channel. But we're going to start adding different dots on there as well. That'll be, you know, have different colors on them and stuff. And some will be where you know that these are dots where there are people who are actively working to build local community, or hey, these are dots where there are people who are hosting weekly watch parties, which brings me to my next acknowledgement. Consider hosting a watch party. You know what I'm saying? Why watch alone when you can watch with a friend? And that's a great way to start building some community in real life right where you are. And so let's talk about how to make that happen and how to make those super duper effective. And to even find ways to integrate those watch parties into the collective conversation, which of course they can all do that through their phones, but we can find some other ways too. Also, we've had quite a few new members join through forums and just through actually slipping up and getting to work. And we, until we have a new members team in place to start doing weekly meetings, and even after then, we're going to start doing something called monthly house parties. And in these monthly house parties, the goal is just to give you a brief introduction, orientation into what this community is, and then just to have some fun and ask questions and all that good stuff.
Now, Kid and Play won't be there.
Kid and Play.
Maybe we try.
And then, of course, as I've reminded you for the past few weeks, stay tuned to the very end of the show, even when we're off the screen, if you're interested to see just how many people go into helping this happens. And that I actually have to update the credits because it's already grown a little bit more. So it's exciting. All right, that's my spiel. I'm going to hush for a minute.
Yes. As you know, Christ Held Up is getting such great feedback. So if you want to pick up your copy, you can head over to Amazon. If you leave a review, we will send you a signed copy.
That's right. Eventually.
Eventually.
I feel so bad. I feel so bad.
It's been about a couple months. We're gonna get it.
Tessa, I'm sorry. Sharon, I'm sorry. Has Sharon sent us her email address yet?
I have to check and see.
I mean, not email, but email address.
I think we may have it. And also, we know there was a storm in the Florida area. So if you're in the affected Florida area, we hope that you were able to stay safe and all is well. And I know it was some damage for some.
Yeah, it was pretty rough.
Yeah. Hope you all are hanging in there and being supportive in the community. Of course, we are looking for further community member support for our live shows on Sundays and Wednesdays. We're going to drop the calendar link that you all can use. If you have a couple hours to spare on those days, that would be great. And some of the work is very light right now. So, helping us in the background, whether it's comments and chat, things of that nature. So you have some time.
And just with all aspects of contributing into this community is a great way to actually build that chemistry and that sense of connection with each other, to learn more about each other in the work. It's one of the greatest ways to build new relationships is through working together.
Right?
So that's just awesome.
Right. And of course, new merch is out. So we're also going to drop the link to the merch store where you can check out all the products and items that we have. There's some great little trinkets that you can get, and we have some more planned on the way that we're working on. So we're excited about that. And also hang out with us after the show. We have community members that jump in post session. Hang out on Discord. We'll drop that link in a few moments as well, where you can join us there. And we just have some great conversations when we're able to join and just chill, kind of unwind some. And so if you're not in Discord, jump in Discord. Discord is where it's at.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
for damn sure.
Yes.
I think that's the fastest we've ever gotten through an introduction. Because it's 11 minutes. We did that in 10 minutes, so like, I am not mad at that. Oh man, I love y'all in the chat. Y'all are just beautiful. All right, so we've been in this conversation series, trust issues, for the past 3 weeks. And by the way, when you check out the merch, there is a trust issues. There is some trust issues merch, and it's dope. There's also some Sunday sessions merch. And there's also Bible study merch, Bible study with the next pastor, learn the Bible, laugh at the bullshit. So that's dope. But today's conversation is a deep dive into the process of learning to trust yourself. Even when external influences, past disappointments, or the complexities of navigating truth and perception make self-trust seem elusive. Over the past few weeks, we've explored trust through various lenses: interpersonal relationships, institutions, and broader society. Today, we focus on the most critical and often most challenging trust relationship of all, the one you have with yourself. Whether it's Plato's Prisoners in the Cave or Neo navigating the Matrix, the journey toward truth often begins with profound internal questioning. And often the first thing we lose trust in during this process is ourselves. Can we truly trust our perceptions, decisions, or instincts after having been wrong before? And that's a question that we've kind of reiterated throughout this entire series. And how do we rebuild that trust in a healthy way? To pull a quote from The Matrix, what is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain. This quote captures the tangible struggle that we all have with reality that often makes it difficult for us to trust ourselves, often leading to the deep need to attach to some shepherd figure. But this weekend, we're going to do the work to rebuild trust with ourselves so that we are no longer in search of leadership, but partnership. If you're excited about today's conversation, would you go ahead and fire off in the chat and just type out, "Are you the one?" If we were in church on a Sunday morning, I'd say tap your neighbor and find somebody and just ask them, "Are you the one?
Are you the one?
Are you the one?" I actually think I've preached a message. I know I have. It was based off of John the Baptist sends somebody to Jesus and says, "Are you the one, or should I wait for another?"
Come on,
but in this case, the "Are you the one?" It's talking about you. Are you the one that you can trust? You know what I'm saying? Yes. Are you the one? And so okay.
Because trusting yourself is not about.
Yep, something just happened. I'll fix that.
Trusting yourself is not about perfection, but about the commitment to growth, accountability, and resilience. Fidelity of self is a concept that refers to your ability to be loyal and consistent to your values, goals, and well-being, even when the path is unclear, which we know sometimes.
Right, like it's
a little blurry, right?
Well, you know, like the more you, it's like the more you begin to learn, the more you begin to understand. You know, contrary to what you think is going to happen, is the more things become unclear. The more things you're clear on, it's like the more things you realize that you're not clear on. Which I always say, intelligence isn't really knowing what you know. Anybody can do that. Intelligence is knowing what you don't know.
And you know what I saw this week, which many used to rely on even back in the day in the church. It's like, okay, if I guess God ways isn't my ways, and so it gets thrown out, like even with bad decisions and things like that. Like, okay, God didn't want, I guess he have better in store for me or something else in store for me. And so it becomes almost like an excuse buffer.
Well, it's like God becomes the big question mark box that anything you don't understand, anything you don't want to confront, anything you don't want to deal with, you can just put it in the God box.
Right.
And that keeps you from having to deal with it. Because like, oh no, that's too big for me. That's God stuff.
Even with when it comes to moving, or like, I guess God didn't want me to have that house. I'll stay in this apartment for 1 year. Not realizing maybe it was my finances.
Maybe it was my credit.
Right. And so I think that is interesting. And so this is not just about always making the right decision, but rather about trusting yourself enough to handle the consequences. Learn from mistakes and move forward with integrity.
I think that's been big for me is I think, especially after my deconversion, and you kind of seen me go through this process of for me, the right decision is such a weird thing, right? And so for me, it's just, what are the consequences and am I willing to deal with those? That's kind of the way I kind of approach decision making. What are the possible outcomes, including the negative consequences? And if the negative consequences happen, am I willing to deal with those? Am I willing to wrestle with those?
And I love what Kyle said here. Let me retrieve it.
I think both of y'all did.
Kyle, you can put up your comment. That God is the blanket we throw over the mystery.
Yes, I love that. But you know, we often judge ourselves based on the mythology of perfection rather than the reality of progression. You know, speaking of which, that is merch that is coming out. And that Kyle ran that poll, and that's the one that ran out. And so I was really excited that it kind of played into this conversation. That a lot of times the reason we don't trust ourselves is because we're trusting ourselves against the standard of perfection instead of a standard of progression. And one of these standards is mythological, and the other of these standards is reality. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing, like, because it's like, oh, I didn't get it right, or oh, I made a decision and it went wrong. And it's like, oh, that means I'm not trustworthy. And I'm like, whoa, the standards you just set on yourself are way too high. And so many people do that. And so what you shouldn't, at least in my opinion now, I don't want to preach at anybody. That's never the goal. We want to help foster the conversations. But I think the goal when it comes to trusting yourself isn't, or the measurement isn't, did I get it right every time? It's, did I learn when I didn't get it right? Did I learn from what went wrong? How did I navigate those consequences? And that's what I love about that, is that I'm not trusting myself to get it right every time. I'm trusting myself to handle the consequences and navigate.
Right.
You know, so I love that. All right. So as we're kind of jumping into the beginning of this conversation, let's kind of open up with some key questions to kind of explore. And so the first one is, what factors lead to breakdown in self-trust, right? Like what leads to us getting to the place of where we say, you know, like, I don't trust myself anymore. And I ended up not being able to be at game night last night because I ended up having a recording with the Apostate sisters. Had completely forgot about the recording, and I told them. So I completely forgot, not on anything on their end, just because my schedule has been like yikes. But I was just so happened to be working on Bridge City stuff, and I said, oh, let me check my email because Patty is also our community administrative support. And so I said, let me check my email because I know she had sent me a message last week. Let me follow up on that. And then I saw, oh yeah, I agreed to do this thing. And so now I have a few hours to get ready. And so I was like, okay, cool. And I really wanted to do this because, of course, Nancy and Joel had stopped by a few weeks before. And it was such a refreshing moment to be able to spend time with them. That's what the podcast just felt like when we were on. It just felt like family talking to people who, you know, who I vibe with. You know, it was like tribe talk. You know, it was tribe conversation. Nobody's really worried about offending anybody. Everybody's giving space for each other's humanity with this insane curiosity about each other. So it was a beautiful, and I think we ended up being in it over 3 hours. Right? We were there for over 3 hours, which of course they do pre-recording, and so they'll do post-production, and so that'll come out. And when it comes out, that will be really cool. I think you're going to enjoy the conversation. But one of the things that we started talking about in that conversation was this idea of that house. Sometimes church can be an entire mind fuck on your ability to trust yourself. Because a lot of times the messaging is you cannot trust yourself. And that's what, and
you should not.
Right. Like that you are not trustworthy. You are sinful. You are carnal. Everything you want is wrong. Everything you want is bad. Lean not unto your own understanding, but in all of your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. You know, hallelujah. You know, and this is that thing that we talked about last week. That is why so many people, even after they deconstruct, still seek out other people to have the answers for them, because it creates shepherd seeking, and the whole thing, because that's the sickness that it really sells you. The sickness that it's selling you so it can give you the cure is that you are not worthy of trusting yourself, that you cannot trust yourself. And so because you cannot trust yourself, you have to lean on somebody else. Flashback to last week, who can I run to? Which is where so many people end up in life. Who can I run to? Who can give me the answers? Who can make me happy? Who can fix my life? Thank you, Young. You know what I'm saying? And instead of saying, you know what? No, I can pay attention to my life and work on my damn self.
Because the thing is, there are other adults.
Yeah.
So if you're an adult and they're an adult, that means you have the capacity, or you can get the capacity.
That's it. I've been saying this for years now. Outside of any extreme emergencies, people can do what people can do. And so anytime, and this is why I've always gotten excited. Like, I've never been what they used to call a hater. I've never been a hater, because anytime I see somebody who does something, that doesn't just tell me something about them. It tells me something about latent capacity within me. You know what I'm saying? If I just wanted to do that, you know what I'm saying? So when I see LeBron, do what he does, and I don't see it because I don't watch sports, but when I hear about LeBron doing what he does, and I'm like, oh man, that is amazing. And I'm like, damn, the human body can do that. People can do that. When I think about the things that people do at the Olympics, I'm like, man, that's something that I could do. Now, I don't want to do that. I do not have the time to train to do that. But if that was something that I wanted to do, that other person doing that with their life is validation for me that this is possible in the human experience.
Come on. And somebody said, shove it up. Come on.
Oh, yes. Good stuff, man. Oh, man. Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. And so so there are several psychological and sociological factors contribute to a breakdown in self-trust. Sociological factors here from those of us who come from high indoctrinating environments. It was the messaging that you're sinful and that his ways are so much higher than your ways, and that even if you tried to figure it out, you couldn't. Why are you trying to figure it out when God has already worked it out? And so it then even makes you feel like trying to figure it out is offensive.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you even trying to figure out how life works. It's like somebody pop your hand. Don't you do that? Why would you do that? God, don't do that, And it's just like, this is insane. But so you get that sociological treatment, but then eventually, because that same society creates, or that same sociological structure rather, creates these unrealistic expectations that, mind you, they don't even live up to on you as proof on you as proof that you're sinful and that you can't trust yourself. And so, which kind of goes back to earlier when I said we judge ourselves based on the mythology of perfection rather than the reality of progression. So anytime you make one little mistake or anytime you make one big mistake in your mind, because of that sociological infrastructure, your psychology now submits to, oh, I shouldn't trust myself. When I trusted myself, this person broke my heart. When I trusted myself, I lost my money. When I trusted myself, this happened and this happened and this happened. So now this indoctrination that I didn't want to believe, maybe I believe it now.
And you know what's interesting, because this doesn't necessarily displays, or you don't see it in babies. When we have a baby, that baby is so curious and interested. It trusts itself. Even it hasn't walked before, it hasn't crawled before, but it starts to crawl. I can get from A to B. I can go get that toy or that food that I want, the pizza, candy, whatever they're looking for. And then at some point, they all decide to let me try to stand up and let me lift myself up. And we don't tell that baby, no, God's going to lift you up. Don't you start crawling.
Don't you start crawling before God tells you to crawl. Let God pick you. That's so good,
baby. We tell that baby, you can do it. Your legs are strong enough to do it. Even if that baby has had braces or needed braces, they're still working and trained. Come on, you got it, and pushing.
But you know what, like you just that, I think that's so good, because I think something we can all learn from babies is that they don't stop trying. They don't stop trying. Like they've not been indoctrinated with the fear of failure yet. And so when they fail, it's not failure for them. It's just something that happened, and I'm gonna try again. I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna keep. You know what I'm saying? And it's funny because then you'll notice sometimes it'll revert as toddlers start getting getting a little older, because we've now taught them the fear of failure. We've now taught them that pain is embarrassing. Because you'll even notice sometimes when they get hurt or they cry, the main reason they're crying is because they've already been taught that I should be crying, that this is painful, this is embarrassing, and I now have to find a way to mask that embarrassment, you know. But these are all but that is such a good point, that babies, before being introduced to anything, they're just gonna keep on trying. And so I'm like, you gotta, that's why. And honestly, it was Jesus's own words that led to my deconversion, and it's that story, it's that kind of anecdote that leads to it for me, because what that demonstrates is being willing to be born again.
Come on,
you know what I'm saying? Like at some point, you got to be able to say, I've been fed a lot of bullshit in my life, and I need to start over and just wipe this thing clean. You know what I'm saying? So you got to be born again. You must be born again. You know, there you go. That should make the Christians happy.
Get the renewing of your mind.
The renewing of your mind. And that literally what it was for me. Like I literally went through a baptism, you know what I'm saying? Of baptizing myself in new information in order to flush out the old junk, the old ideologies, the old things that I was attached to. And that's why I absolutely love conversations like this, because it helps expose us all to new information. Man, baby girl took us back to babes. Like, oh my goodness. That's good stuff.
Born again, I love that.
All right, so I've already kind of mentioned past failures, and people often internalize failure as a reflection of their competence or worth, and that's so heavy. I know I used to do that, just kind of talking, especially as a former pastor, and I think that's the most freeing thing now about being a community developer in the secular space, as opposed to being a senior pastor in the superstitious space. That so much of my worth was attached to how many people showed up on Sunday. Oh my goodness. And so that meant every Sunday where the numbers didn't match my ego expectations was a Sunday that I felt that this was a reflection of my worth, of my competence. You know, it took me like 5 years after deconversion to realize, like, boy, you kind of good at what you do. You know what I'm saying? And like my mentors had been telling me for years, but because of so much of I had experienced in my life, I was so focused on my failures that I really couldn't see my successes. You know? And so
Been
like
there.
I and I think what it was, I couldn't trust my success because I was so overwhelmingly focused on my failures.
I feel like that's a default position for some because I can definitely at one point it was hard to take compliments. I would downplay it. Like, you know, someone give me something say something positive, I'll downplay it, be like, oh no, I know so and so is better than it.
Because that's only if I did well, it's only the glory of God because everything else I do is so bad that when the good things happen, you knew that had to be God.
Yeah, when you
like you see how much of a mind fuck that is?
Yeah.
Like but that's what gets us, you know. And then cognitive biases such as confirmation bias can make individuals focus disproportionately on their past mistakes, weakening self-trust. And I know, like, when I was going through my stuff, I'm like, who the fuck hasn't made past mistakes? You know, like, so like I separated from so much. Like, growing up, the worst thing you could do is act like you were better than somebody else. Like, you remember that? Like, oh, they just think they better than me. Oh, these people think. And I, like, now when I think about that, I'm like, who the fuck are you for somebody not to be better than you? Like, simmer the fuck down.
And
like,
somebody think less of themselves.
Like, yes, like get this, I'll get all this. Somebody's better. Everybody is better at me in something. You know what I'm saying? Like that, like that's not even a concern for me anymore.
Right.
Because that shit is just like, no, what the fuck? Like, what type of trigger do you have? Like, what do you really feel about yourself if you have this need where nobody else can be better at you than anything? And you know, and I've had to work with people like that, and that shit is aggravating as fuck.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, please, no, we just all people. And some people are better at some shit than other people are. Yeah, and that's okay. And because the truth of the matter is, the things I'm not good at, I don't even want to be good at. And I'm very clear about it.
We wouldn't have teachers if that was the case. So professors, a lot of the inventions or things we use today came from mistakes.
That's right.
Mishaps.
Oh, man. And not only mistakes, some of that stuff came from somebody said, you know what, I don't want to get better at this. I want this to get easier. You know, like somebody said, like, I don't want to get better at agriculture. I want agriculture to be easier. You know, so I don't want more tools. I don't want to know how to use those tools better. Give me some machines, God damn it. You know, and that, you know, that's I love that. Oh, that's good. But okay, so as far as the psychological impact, the emotional toll of failure can lead to feelings of inadequacy or a lack of self-efficacy, which is the belief in one's ability to succeed, which now this is why, like, I firmly believe in what I call the gospel of responsibility, not in the sense of just pull yourself up from your old bootstraps. I'm not mad at that. But when I talk about the gospel of responsibility, it's reminding people that they're capable. Yeah. And I don't know if we've considered how much damage religious thinking has done to people's self-efficacy. Yeah. And so there are literally people out there who believe that they cannot succeed. Yeah. And it's just like, oh my goodness, I just want to be like Aladdin and come to you and be like, I can show you the world, because there's a whole new world out there and you can succeed. It, like, anybody. Is it hard? Yes. But the missing ingredient is not somebody opening a door for you. The missing ingredient is not somebody pulling you up. Will that be helpful? You goddamn it, it would be, and more people should do it. But I want people to realize, if nobody does it, you're capable. You're capable. And you'll never explore that aspect of yourself if you believe that it doesn't even exist. And I'm telling you, the data says you're capable, you know.
And that's good, because there are sermons where people like, why not you?
Yeah.
Why not me?
Yeah, that's right.
And, you know, some people like, oh, why this person get picked, or why did this person get successful? Why not me? But then it goes towards the end. Well, it's you because of
Jesus. That's right. That's right. Oh man, yes. All right, and so that was the psychological impact, societal influence, which I've talked about a little bit. But in a highly achievement-focused society, failure is stigmatized. further eroding an individual's self-trust, especially if external pressures to succeed are strong. All right, so many of you know I was a part of the mega church culture. I was a part of the church growth culture. So in that, what is that? That's high achievement.
Yeah.
That's the whole goal.
Yeah.
That's this, and that's unfortunately that's the same line of thinking in the prosperity gospel church, you know, which I still am kind of high achievement. I cannot lie.
Yeah.
But I've learned how to respect other people's, like that's not their drive. Like that's been the beauty. Like, so I don't have to stop my drive, because then there are other people like, come on, man, you just need to chill out and vibe out and sell out. And I'm like, that's cool, but it's just not where I am right now. And so I'm here. But I love the fact that other people are there as well. But that is something we have to be mindful of, that in a high achievement focused society that we tend to stigmatize failure, because then, failure becomes stigmatized when success becomes standardized. I'm gonna say that one more time. I'm gonna say that one more time for the people in the back. All right. Failure becomes stigmatized when success becomes standardized, which means when one person's success becomes the archetype or the prototype of success, anybody else's journey towards success that does not look like theirs automatically is invalidated. So if it took me a little longer to get to the answer you did, even though I got to the answer, I'm a failure because I didn't get there when you did. Failure becomes stigmatized when success becomes standardized. That's good.
And that's where you get, where some people in school, public schools, they still have to do time tests. Even to get into college, you got time exams to complete. And just because someone doesn't finish in time doesn't mean they didn't know the answers, but they still consider, they don't get the best score. Right? And they get looked at differently. But if you allow them time to finish,
come on now.
Go ahead and finish. Come on now. Let me finish.
Look,
my race. Okay.
We used to give God the grace. We'd say God may not come when you want him, but he's always on time. Now, what if we started treating other people like that, saying they may not get there when I want them to get there, but the fact that they got there means that they're on time. It's their time, man.
And the praying folks always did it with some of their children, the grandmas. If you had that grandma, the grandma was always praying
on time. Oh my goodness. This is good stuff. This is good stuff. All right. And so that was past failures. Dang, how did we got into some stuff there. All right. Next one is external validation, right? When individuals rely heavily on external approval or validation for their self-worth, they lose the ability to self-assess. So it becomes more important about what my mom thinks about my success, or my friend group thinks about my success, or my network, my peer group, my work group, what they think about my success. And what you're doing there, you're depriving yourself of the ability to say, but what do I think though? You know, and there's a, I don't know if you call it a practice, but there's this kind of activity. It's a mental activity that I have people to do, and you just kind of mapping out yourself. And because it's something you realize it is so simple, but you realize people don't give themselves permission to do it. And I call it just kind of pouring yourself out, right? You're just going to pour yourself out, all on a piece of paper, chalkboard, mind map, whatever it is, everything about you, and detach from attaching a positive or negative value to it. This isn't, detach from saying this is moral or immoral. Detach from saying this is right or wrong. Just let yourself get all of it out. And the reason that's important, because if you don't detach, you'll only let out the stuff you want to let out. You'll only let out the stuff you're comfortable with. You'll only let out the stuff that you've been societally kind of impressed to say this is okay. And that's the thing that you really kind of got to get out of that trap of. And just say, no, this is me, whether anybody else says it's okay or not. And I need to be able to have a better view into me. So after I have all of that out, then I can determine whether or not I like this or not. Then I can determine how I feel about this. But if I can't see it, I'm never going to really be able to think about it.
Yeah.
If every time I try to start thinking about that, it gets uncomfortable and I say, oh, I don't want to go there, then I'm never going to go there. And so I said, you have to you got to be able to give yourself more grace. You have to be able to take the most objective view of your life. And that's what I think that's so hard for individuals.
Yeah.
It's hard to view ourselves objectively.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? To say, okay, you know what? I don't have to look like anybody else wants me to look. My life doesn't have to compare to anybody else's life. I can just lay all these chips out. Some of this stuff is good. Some of this stuff is bad. Some of this stuff is ugly. Some of it is naughty, freaky, and nasty. And you know what? I think I like a little bit of all of it. I think that's me, and I'm okay with it.
And that's your way of laying it on the altar.
That's right. That's it. Like it's I'm not laying it on the altar of some other God. I'm laying it on the altar of my damn self and determining if this is okay with me.
Come on.
Hallelujah. You know,
21st century, thank you. We speak that into existence.
Oh man, that is beautiful. Yes. Yes. This is some great stuff. Oh man. Okay. So yeah, external validation and then societal expectations. Gender, cultural norms, and systemic inequalities can often affect self-trust. I just remember growing up, my both of my grannies, just would constantly say stuff. And a lot of the deacons, even remember when we took over that little Baptist church when I was still an atheist. I took over Baptist church for like 3 months. It was not great.
Yeah.
But they were really stuck and just like a very long time ago and constantly said stuff. And like I said, it was stuff my granny said when I was growing up. This is a white man's world. This is a white man's world. This is a white man's world. Do you imagine how that impacts a Black person's ability to navigate the world or to believe in their capacity to navigate the world? Like, this ain't even my world, and at the end of the day, it ain't nobody's world. But so we'll get there. But for example, women or marginalized groups may face imposter syndrome, where societal expectations make them feel less qualified or competent, despite objective success. Now, I got to pat myself on the book here, on the back of the book. Got to pat myself on the back here because I am one of the first authors who talked about the imposter syndrome in a book. And I say one of the first, I mean one of the first outside of academic work. You know what I'm saying? Because it was a kind of like a autobiographical sketch, but it's called Significant. It's the very first book that I wrote. And I talked about that, realizing that I wrestled with both sides of that because the imposter syndrome is a spectrum. On one side is people who don't know what the fuck they doing, but are so arrogant that they think they do.
Yeah.
That's an imposter, right? But on the other side, it's people who have such a lack of self-confidence that even when they are doing exceptionally well, they can't recognize it. And that was ultimately what my first book was about. Yeah. It was called Significant. And it was my journey from dissidence to confidence.
And that's what as soon as you brought it, I thought of dissonance chapter.
Yay! It's awesome. But yeah, so these societal expectations can make you feel less qualified or competent despite objective success. So watch this. This one was a big one for me as a part of a marginalized group. I'm doing all of the work of someone who should be getting paid this. But because of systemic inequalities, I'm only getting paid this. And that's deeper than just, you're not getting paid this because you're a different color. Yeah. Systemic inequalities are vast and are broad. That's why they're so hard to change. Yeah. There's so many different hoops you have to follow to get there, but that's an area where you'll begin to say, even though I'm doing the work, even though I'm doing the same amount of work, even though I'm doing better at the work, I'm going to feel like I'm not as good at the work or not as qualified for the work because I'm not getting paid what somebody else is who's either doing the same work or less work.
And then that leads sometimes to you not even trying to make that jump somewhere else.
Absolutely. Because you begin to convince yourself that you're not qualified. You say, like, if I was qualified, they'd recognize it. And then I start realizing, no, there's a lot of people out here who can't recognize value. And the moment you get comfortable realizing that, you will stop holding other people's opinion in so high regard. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I tell people, especially when it comes to work stuff, right? don't spend too much time in the wrong place. You know, fuck them people. You don't owe them that. If they're not, don't wait for somebody to recognize your value. You know, everywhere I've ever worked, I give them 6 months. You got 6 months of me giving you my absolute best. I'm coming it in and I'm grinding it out. If you don't recognize my value after that, I'm gonna drop it from 110 till about 60. And then as soon as I find somebody else that's entertaining, I'm gonna drop that down to about 30 while I'm going through the interview phase. And then in 2 weeks notice is coming after that, you know, because I'm not wasting my time. And that's what I you know, especially when it comes to people I mentor about work, like you don't owe anybody that, bro. If they're not going to recognize your value, find some place that will. We did used to say that in the church culture, go where you celebrate it, not where you tolerate it.
Come on. I love that. Go where you celebrate.
I think we took that from the motivational culture. You know, church did a lot of that. All right, so my last thing on my little piece is socio-cultural theories suggest that societal structures influence individuals' perception of self-worth, often undermining self-trust for those who feel outside of mainstream norms. And that's, again, why I said it's so important to have this type of mental activity of pouring yourself out. So your voice and your opinion can become the most important in your life so that you can counteract that, you know. You say, no, I don't need them to be happy with what I'm eating. Yeah. What I eat don't make them poop. So I don't even know why it should even matter. You have to kind of get that way. No, I don't need them to be like at one time at the church that I started from scratch. I lost my whole leadership team because I refused to upgrade my clothes. Because I said financially, the church was strapped. You know, I was barely being able to pay my bills.
You were being practical.
I'm being practical. And they're like, well, Pastor, your jeans, they're ashy. And we don't want that. And I'm like, well, no, like I got kids at home. I barely have any food in my refrigerator. And you're talking to me about my clothes?
And it's funny because some congregations are used to being preached, come as you are, but they won't give that same grace.
Oh no. Oh no. Like like when you see so many pastors who feel this need to become celebrity superstars, I want you to know part of that is being fed by the culture. Part of that is being fed from the bottom up. That if you don't look like this, we're leaving. You know, and that's what you'll see, because you remember churches used to be these real traditional kind of like community spaces. Now they over propagandize the community aspect, but they used to be these real traditional spots, and you could be a big boring church and people would still come to your church. But then when the flashy preachers start coming in, those, you know, traditional churches with flowers all over the place and shit started dwindling down. And so then the only way you could even keep your congregation is you was gonna have to start adding a little flash. And that was just something I've always been incredibly averse to, you know. All right. But so that was my little spot.
And so let's jump into another key question for us to think about. How do we rebuild trust in ourselves after periods of doubt or betrayal? Rebuilding trust is a gradual process that requires introspection, accountability, and consistency. And one of the most effective psychological tools for rebuilding self-trust is something called CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, which helps individuals identify and challenge irrational thought patterns, such as overgeneralizing from past failures, which I have been guilty of. Through this process, individuals can start reframing their mistakes as opportunities for growth rather than permanent deficiencies.
I think that's such a good point, because when people do see, when you can reframe your mistakes as an opportunity for growth, it makes it easier to deal with your mistakes. And it actually moves you from, eventually you move from even using that word mistake, because we realize that mistakes exist for the most part when it comes to life under the mythology of perfection. If the mythology of perfection doesn't exist, then there aren't really many things in life that are actually mistakes. You're just living life.
Some people call them lessons.
Yeah, you're like, oh, this is lessons. Because I mean, that really is, that's what life is for a conscious or a sentient being. Life is a series of lessons, and then if you start calling some of those lessons mistakes and choosing not to learn those lessons because they were mistakes, then that makes it really hard to kind of grow, and it makes it hard to trust yourself, and it makes it even harder to know yourself. So I know, like in certain sessions, like when taking people through intense type of work, it's getting people to get really comfortable with those things that they used to identify as mistakes. And you'll find that it's very, very difficult because there's so much shame and sorrow and regret that are often attached to these feelings. And then the work that I like to do is to help people realize, like, what the fuck is the use of that shit, though? Like, how's that shame helping you? And we have to remember, like, we're never really shamed for ourselves. We're shamed because someone else has taught us that's how we should feel. And so shame is for the comfort of others. I need you to feel shamed so I can feel comfortable about you not doing that again. You know what I'm saying?
Because any other time by yourself, it's like, okay, moving on to the next day.
No, like, you wasn't shamed when you did it. You wasn't shamed when you did it. So like, let's get this shit up out of here. No shame, no sorrow. You are a fucking primate on a space rock. Okay, shit happens. You know what I'm saying? Like, and again, that's just like, again, recognizing that humanity is complex and valuable, and we have to learn how to value the complexity.
I love that. And according to Bandura's theory, small successive achievements rebuild self-efficacy. Starting with small, manageable goals that gradually increase in difficulty helps restore faith in one's ability to succeed. If you ever heard of Lisa Nichols, she talks about those micro wins, giving those small wins, right? Doing what you can. And it's easy habits. I think one good example is just you doing your steps. You go out to the back porch anyway. It's like, oh, okay, this is something small that I can
put some steps
build to have.
That's it. Micro wins. Yeah, I think the majority way of how I lost the majority of the weight. But yeah, the way that I lost the majority of the weight was just through micro wins. I'm not trying. My wins were not even based on the pounds. It was based on the activity itself. It's like, oh no, I live a very sedentary lifestyle. I am in front of my computer a lot. I need to maximize my time when I'm away from my computers by adding some activity there.
Yeah, I think you do a great job at habit stacking.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
That's productivity.
For those of you who are looking for, like, how does he get so much done? She's giving you the gold now. She's telling you all the stuff that we charge people for. She's giving you for free. just throwing it. For real. But no, honestly, it's definitely habit stacking. Man, yes.
And so another way that you can rebuild self-trust is through self-compassion. Yes. Psychologist Kristen Neff emphasizes the importance of self-compassion in moments of doubt rather than engaging in harsh self-criticism. It's hard to do for me. Practicing kindness towards oneself fosters an environment for self-trust to grow. Self-compassion shifts the focus from judgment to understanding and growth, allowing for a healthier relationship with oneself. I think that's so important. It seems so easy to do when you're reading it, but
man, well, it's again going back to that kind of mind fuck of religion. Because I'm just thinking, like, because earlier I was talking about how it, it does shift you into not trusting yourself, right? Mm-hmm. But let's talk about all the ways that it does that. It tells you don't touch yourself. Mm-hmm. It tells you don't love yourself. It literally says loving yourself is sinful. You have to think about that. Don't feel good about yourself. Pride. All of these, the relationship that religion often gives us with the self is why it's so hard for us to explore the self, because you're like, literally, don't talk to yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, oh my goodness. I'm sorry, that was good. Thank you for pointing that out.
No, that's good. And The last way to help rebuild your trust after doubt or betrayal is psychological, shifting that psychological perspective. So, in social settings, rebuilding self trust involves creating boundaries and reframing the role of external validation.
Yeah.
I love that. Creating those boundaries and reframing the role of external validation. Sociologist Charles Horton Cooley's Looking Glass self theory highlights that individuals often view themselves through the lens of how others perceive them.
Yes.
By shifting from seeking approval to affirming personal values and decisions, individuals can regain self-trust through autonomous choices.
I know I recognize this when I was pastoring, realizing how we often relate with struggling financially or something like that. And what I begin to realize is that for most people, even myself, that I was encountering with, it was never really the fact that we weren't going to have money. That was the problem. It was never really the fact that we weren't going to be able to buy these things. That was the problem. What I realized all those years ago, the real pressure came from people finding out, people being able to see that you're not going to have that. And so what that helped me realize is that most people were ultimately okay. Like, this doesn't feel bad. Hey, we're just not going to be able to get this week. And they'd be okay. But then just the idea of knowing that someone is going to have a judgment about this, is that someone's going to have a comment about this, is that if my clothes don't look right at work, somebody might have some thoughts about it. It's all of that additional pressure, which means that it's not the actual event itself that's causing the trauma. It's the stigmatization that from society that's creating it, which is kind of like that's a great analogy to, like, much of what happened in the drug epidemic was not the result of people doing drugs. Much of what happened during the drug epidemic was in result of how we treated people who were doing drugs. I'm just trying to say something. That's it. Don't mind me. Oh, this is good. Okay. So, next question. How does self-trust intersect with our perception of reality and decision-making processes? So from a cognitive psychological perspective, self-trust heavily influences cognitive biases and decision-making processes. For example, individuals with low self-trust may engage in confirmation bias, selectively seeking out information that reinforces their doubts or insecurities. Conversely, high self-trust can mitigate biases like availability heuristics, making decisions based on easily accessible information rather than the best data, because it encourages a more confident and measured approach to processing information.
And you know what that immediately made me think of? When sometimes where we're from, if someone decides not to go to college, or they keep getting C's, and they be like, "It's okay, baby. Everybody is smart."
Yeah. Oh my goodness, I hate
when
people do that.
It's like you don't have to have, as long as you have this, you gonna be okay. If they're athletic, okay, you don't have to. So we're trying to downplay that growth. They were kind of stuck that growth.
Yep. Well, like, I even noticed in a similar related way, when I was a pastor, I definitely leaned into the availability heuristic. And so the first information I found, or the most easily accessible information I found, is always the information I went by, which is one of the reasons it was so easy to remain a Christian, because the first information you find, even when you're searching for stuff today, many times, whether it's psychological help, sociological help, anything you're looking at, much of it is already infused with this Christocentric worldview.
Right. Even that first article that popped up, it must be right.
That first article, it must be right. And so once I realized I was kind of doing that and started really building in my trust, and the thing is, the reason you do that, I think that's a weird dynamic. The reason we do that is because we don't trust ourselves, right? So I'm going to take the most easily accessible information because I actually don't trust myself to dig through the information. But the more that I begin to trust myself, the less trusting I am of immediate information.
And sometimes it's just as simple as, oh, I don't feel like it's laziness.
Yeah.
I don't feel like doing all this research. And so everybody's not inclined to dive deeper.
I love it. And so then there's also decisional confidence. So psychologists like Daniel Kahneman have studied how decision making under uncertainty is influenced by internal confidence. When self-trust is low, individuals tend to overly rely on external authorities or avoid making decisions altogether due to fear of error. And this is that thing we highlighted last week called shepherd seeking. And so that's where you get you feel like somebody else has to answer my problems because I'm not good enough to know how to answer my problems.
Some people do that in your comment.
Oh yes.
Answer my question.
And it's like I'm not your shepherd. Like I will not be doing this. On the other hand, those with higher self-trust make quicker, more decisive choices based on their internal compass, often leading to more effective decision making. So when it's a decision about them, they're like, I'm the best person to make that decision. And it took me years to get there. I definitely, a major part of pastoral culture, like a big thing we should say is every pastor needs a pastor. Because then what we kind of created was this idea that having a pastor was a personal need, that every person needs a pastor. Yeah. And when you need a pastor because someone needs to be telling you what to do. Somebody needs to be telling you when you're wrong. Because it's this idea, and it's a very popular idea, you're not capable of telling you when you're wrong.
So is that considered checks and balances?
It's almost like a checks and balances, but the problem is it's like if America's checks and balances was with Russia. It don't work that well when the checks and balance is external and not internal. And so like the thing that I realized, like, oh, I can check and balance my damn self. I can do it. I can do it. As a matter of fact, I've become accustomed to it. I prefer it. I prefer to be able to check and balance myself. You know what I'm saying? Because it's uncomfortable for other people to have to check anybody. Yeah. None of us ever like to have to check somebody. I mean, I will have fun with it. You know what I'm saying? I will have fun. But nobody really is comfortable calling out other people's issues. Yeah. And so do other people a favor by just calling out your own shit. Yeah. That makes everybody comfortable. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like if you sitting there and you're like, damn, I was tripping. I promise you, everybody in the room is gonna be like, oh, I'm so glad you said it. I was trying to figure out a way to bring this to your attention. But we also have to get that belief in ourselves that no, I can self-correct. Hell, if Microsoft Word can autocorrect, I can autocorrect too. God damn it.
Come on,
That's it. But that's a whole part of trusting yourself, right? I love it. And then just the perception of reality. From a sociological standpoint, symbolic interactionism explains that reality is socially constructed, but the individual's ability to navigate this constructed reality, it sounds like the Matrix, depends on their sense of agency and self-trust. For example, someone with a strong sense of self-trust might challenge dominant narratives or societal pressures, while someone with low self-trust might conform to societal expectations out of fear or uncertainty, skewing their perception of reality. And I definitely see this every 4 years, every election cycle, where there are people who have just made up in their minds that somebody else knows better than me. They know the answer, so I'm just going to go with what they say. Because if I decided based off of what I think, I could be so wrong, and I don't want to do that. And while, hey, you could be right, that's not a healthy way to engage reality.
Yeah, for sure. And so let's jump into this next question. How does our attachment to external sources of truth or authority impede our ability to trust ourselves? Well, it's something called external locus of control, and that is when individuals place their sense of control outside of themselves, such as with authority figures, religious beliefs, or societal norms. They weaken their self-trust. Julian Rodder's concept of locus of control describes how individuals with an external locus of control believe that external forces rather than their own actions dictate outcomes. This leads to dependence of external validation and a lack of trust in one's ability to affect change. And that's so good because even when you have a pastor, some people look at to their pastor or their elders or their deacons for that external validation. And if it's not validated by them, they won't do it or they won't move or they won't, if you tell your pastor, I'm about to move to a different city or a different state to pursue this.
Let's take it. Let's bring it home a little closer to something that you've seen it. You've seen it promoted in television when you grew up. If you wanted to date somebody, if you wanted to marry somebody, you had to have external validation.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But yeah, you're so right. That thing was hard baked in. If I wanted to start a church, I needed external validation from somebody else who said I'm good enough to start a church.
And some people stop right there. If that person, whoever they're looking at, is an authority or religious beliefs, they wouldn't move forward.
Oh no. We know people like who won't write a book, like they want to write a book, but until their pastor give them the release to write a book, they can't write the book.
Yeah.
Church is doing a mind fuck on people, y'all. Like it's insane. It's insane.
It is. And that displays the psychological dependence on authority.
Yes.
So in situations where individuals have been taught to defer to external authorities for truth, such as we see it with religious leaders, even politicians, political figures, and sometimes our parents can be that. They develop a diminished capacity for critical thinking, and that's so. Oh my gosh, the lack of people we run into or have been in our lives who, and this is the thing, literally come out their mouths to downplay critical thinking. And they exchange it for God's way.
Yeah.
What they really mean is the Bible. The Bible is the critical thinking source. Literally, we heard one leader say the Bible is the dictionary.
We did hear them say that.
And I was like, oh my God,
that
no.
meant this person don't know what the Bible is or the dictionary. Like this person is severely confused.
Yes. And so we see how that's so much ingrained. And when these external figures are later discredited or contradict one another, the individual is left feeling lost and unsure of how to form their own beliefs. This is a common occurrence in post-religious deconversion, where trust in external authoritative truth collapses and individuals must reconstruct their own framework for understanding reality. And honestly, from what I see or what I've been seeing this year, sometimes people won't even get to this point because they get so stuck on like, oh, I must not, even with the loss of that, they don't trust themselves enough to even start the process.
Well, see, that's what it made me think of when you were saying it. And so I was kind of bugging out in my head because I was like, that's what shepherd seeking is all about. It's about finding somebody else who's already figured it out. And so then I don't have to go through the discomfort of figuring it out. Because, and that's really what we've talked about through this entire series is that trust, whether you're learning how to trust the world around you or trying to learn how to trust yourself, is an uncomfortable process because it is a never-ending journey.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so the shortcut that many of us end up looking for is somebody else has figured all of this out, so I don't have to go through that. And the comfort that we want to create in this community is the safety to, no, I'm going to have to figure it out. I got to figure it out. Because truth be told, it's really not that healthy to trust somebody else is figuring it out. Because again, we are all blind folk touching the elephant, And what somebody else figures out may be absolutely relevant, proportional to their experience.
Right.
And may be absolutely damaging to you.
Right. Because there's so many variables that they may not even know.
Yep.
Have seen for your life.
Yep.
Experiences, and so there's a whole lot of things that come into play.
And honestly, and this is just me from a global perspective, we need your contribution in figuring it out. We need your wrestling with this thing to understand the things that we would never consider. And like, that's how you create more diverse solutions, is by helping everybody feel comfortable in being a part of the figuring it out thing. That figuring it out shouldn't be just what a small handful of the human population is doing. What we're all doing by living life is figuring it out. We're all playing a role in that.
Yeah.
And we should pat ourselves on the back for that shit.
Yeah.
Like, every time you experience something, you're like, oh, I just helped y'all figure this shit out. This shit hurts. All right. Don't want to do this one, Let me send that message out globally. Hey, anybody, if you meet Ray J, stay the fuck away from him. All right. Let me stop. That's hilarious.
No, so okay, let's see. Another way external attachment to external forces impede on our ability to trust ourselves, and that is social conformity and groupthink.
Yes.
Which is a big one, because this starts
early. Yeah.
Early. As soon as you get in school, you're around that social.
You don't like Power Rangers? Why you don't watch Power Rangers? Voltron. What's Voltron? Man, yeah.
Yes. So from a sociological perspective, conformity and groupthink can also impede self-trust. Social psychologist Solomon Ash famous conformity experiment showed how easily people abandon their own perceptions to align with the majority opinion. That's why Mark Twain had a quote that I always remember: if you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and think.
Yes. Yes.
You need to look at it like, oh, wait a minute. How many people said this to do this?
I've always believed that, yes, everybody can be wrong. That is absolutely possible. And it has happened historically.
We have seen. So in context where social or cultural pressures are strong, individuals may prioritize external validation over their own insights, leading to a disconnection from self-trust. It's funny. There was, back in the day where preachers be like, okay, Y2K was going to be the end of times. And because it was your pastor saying it, you was like, oh, my pastor right. He ain't never wrong. And we assume that pastors got stuff right for stuff you didn't even see.
Oh, I realize people in churches have the shortest attention spans ever.
Yeah.
Pastors be preaching the same sermons damn near back to back, and people don't be catching it.
We don't catch it.
And I mean, like, script from script. Script from script. Oh man, that's good.
Last point here, there are some cultural and socialization factors that come into play, and that in certain cultures or social settings, independent thinking is devalued in favor of group cohesion or traditional beliefs.
Oh yes.
Individuals raised in such environments may struggle to build self-trust because they've been conditioned to see external sources such as family, community, or religious authorities as the ultimate truth, which is so dangerous.
Yeah, because then imagine you're not wrong because you did something. You're wrong because you think different. Like, can you imagine? Like, that's horrible. That's damaging. That's destructive. It's especially in your formative years. And so many of us do experience that, where it's just like, nope. You think different, you're a threat, you're a danger, you need to conform, we're gonna pick on you, or we're gonna do this. And it's all the pressure think like us, whether the way we're thinking is helpful or not, think like us, Steve
Harvey put out the movie in the book, think like me.
I'm like, don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. Don't hurt your life like that. No, let me stop. So drawing on the allegory of the cave and the Matrix analogies, both stories center on characters who doubt their own perceptions after being freed from illusion. Trusting yourself means understanding that you won't always have clarity right away, and that's okay. Much like the freed prisoners in Plato's cave who first see shadows before they see the full objects, or Neo's initial disbelief in his abilities, Trusting yourself is a process that evolves over time.
And you know what that made me immediately think of? When you in our house, in our everyday life, Darante, if he don't know the answer to something, he's not going to make up in his head. He's like, I don't know.
I don't know that.
And it's like, we can go look it up, or like we can Google it.
That's it.
You know, he's not going to.
I don't feel bad about not knowing. I'm like, oh damn, I must be stupid because I didn't know the answer to this question that I had never tried to know the answer to before. Like, no, like I've removed myself from that.
And we have such great kids that even sometimes our oldest will know the answer to the question, and that's beauty. That's beautiful to see.
Absolutely. So, a question for just to kind of ponder is: have you ever doubted your ability to perceive truth, and how did you overcome that doubt? And what role did self-trust play in your journey? And interestingly enough, what you said, that's kind of what I start doing to overcome that self-doubt. Is I no longer feel forced to know or understand anything that I don't have a reasonable reason to know or understand, which removes a lot of unnecessary pressure for me. So if I'm doing something for the first time and it doesn't work the way that I thought it was going to work, I realized because it was my first time, I didn't have enough information to know exactly what would work. And the only way I could get that information was through trying, which meant that I was actually braver than all the rest of these motherfuckers by doing something. And so I will pat myself on the back every fucking time because I know I'm gonna get the fuck back up and keep on going. So no, I'm not gonna feel bad for failing at something that this is my first time doing. I don't put that pressure on myself to know information that I did not have a way of knowing prior to that moment, nor do I put pressure on myself to understand information my first time seeing it. I know that's just not how that shit works. And so a lot of the times the pressure we put on ourselves is just 100% unrealistic. Yeah. You mad at yourself because you didn't know the answer to a question you had never tried to answer before.
And that's a good way to handle bullies. I've noticed if whatever they say now, you fell off your bike, or you couldn't do this, you just turn it right back on them with what you just said. It's my first time. Make them look like silly.
A, B, C, D, E, F you is where we go there. You know, that's what you do to those type of folks. But yeah, it's ridiculous, you know. So you have to, a lot of times you have to realize like you're probably a harsh critic on yourself, and you need to kind of let go a little bit, you know. And you know, don't treat yourself like you're your parent. You're not your parent, you're you. You know, and I think sometimes we try to parent ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, for sure. And that's where that harsh critical voice comes from. And it's just like, don't do that. You know, deal with yourself from an informed perspective. It's okay. Emotions are for the experience, data is for the decisions. You will have some things that happen in your life that make you feel sad, that make you feel down. You don't have to turn those moments into moments of shame. You don't have to turn those into moments of sorrow. You can engage yourself soberly. You can enjoy those moments of emotion and appreciate those moments of expression, and then get back to the drawing board for the decision that you're going to make.
And what's that? It was a scripture they used to say, we're thinking of your, no man thinks.
Let no man think more highly of himself than he ought to. But soberly, something. That's amazing how many scriptures I've forgotten now. Because I used to be able to fire these bad boys off. Oh, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. All right, so fidelity to self means staying aligned with your values, even when external pressures make it difficult. Self-trust requires you to commit to your own well-being, ensuring that you're not constantly seeking validation or guidance from external sources, whether they be religious, political, or societal. Many people in the secular deconversion space often experience a crisis of self-trust after leaving their faith communities. It's easy to second guess yourself when leaving behind an authoritative structure. But fidelity to self means trusting your inner moral compass and critical thinking skills. But it also means trusting yourself to develop those things. Even knowing, so like, hey, no, I may not know all of the things that I think I need to know right now, but I can at least, and again, it goes back to what you said earlier, I'm not trusting myself to always have the right answer. I'm trusting myself to learn on the journey, you know. And so when was a time in your life when you were forced or faced with a difficult decision, and instead of seeking external validation, you trusted your own values? Now, for me, that was resigning from The Rock.
Yeah.
You know, that decision made no sense. If I would have sought any external validation, it would have been, boy, don't you do that. You need to stay there. That church is this and this and this. And I'm just like, nah, I don't need anybody else's input to recognize that this is bullshit and I don't want to be a part of it. Yeah. Now, if you want to be a part of the bullshit, you are more than welcome to. But I'm going to pass, you know.
Yeah, and for me, it was moving out of state was big for me because it wasn't as close to New York, or it wasn't as close to Virginia Beach, you know, being in the DMV area. And that's the first time I drastically moved. And I'd have moved around within state in the area, but moving so far was like, it shook the tables. It shook the mind, apparently, you know. But it was a big decision, and it ended up being a great one.
Oh.
And so how do we overcome what is self-doubt, and how do we overcome it? Let's dive into that. So self-doubt is a common obstacle to self-trust, especially when you've experienced failures or been misled by past beliefs. The goal is to understand that doubt is part of the human experience and doesn't negate your ability to make sound decisions moving forward. Learning to trust yourself again often means forgiving yourself for past mistakes and recognizing that growth is part of the journey. And I think at one point for me, I got to a place where like, I don't know if I want to forgive myself for this because of this, you know, and then you realize, if you are still living, if you are still moving, performing, processing, keep going, then you sort of already forgiving yourself in behavior.
That's right. Yeah.
Otherwise, you like, I'm in life today. I'm not going to do it.
That's right. Yeah.
Give up,
That's a good point. I was like, no, you actually have forgiven yourself, but you think you owe somebody else the shame. That's what you're saying. So, well, I don't think I should forgive myself for that. What you're saying is, I think I owe somebody the shame. Now, even though behavior-wise, I'm still living like I want to live and making decisions like I'm going to make them. But when I make those decisions that are in alignment with me, but out of alignment with others, I'm going to give them that shame as my offer of sacrifice. Yeah. And I'm like, stop that. You don't owe them that. Like, nope.
They ain't going to give it to you.
And there's just no value in it. There is no utility in that, you know. Sometimes, you know, I challenge people to deal with things like that, you know, when you're having arguments and you're trying to figure out if what the other person is asking from you is fair or not. And, you know, I challenge people to, you know, what's the utility of it? Like, what will this thing do? Will this thing, what will the outcome do? Will this thing, will it dehumanize one of you? You know, and it's just like, because then we can kind of clearly see what we're really wrestling with. And a lot of times those things don't feel as clear to us. You know?
Yeah, for sure. And Kyle, that is something definitely heavy to deal with. And so we appreciate you just pushing on and moving like, okay, how can I move to this next chapter? And so
next chapter.
Yes, in my book. Yeah. And so look at in the Matrix, Neo doubted himself numerous times, especially when he couldn't immediately meet the expectations placed upon him. His self-trust developed as he began to engage with his reality and understand that failure didn't mean he wasn't capable. And that I can see that being a personal halt. Like if you feel it, and it could be the smallest thing. Yep. Like, oh, maybe I'm not able to do this. But if you ever trained in any heavy sports or performing arts or anything, you understand that, it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot of downtime. It's going to be a lot of failure. It's going to be a lot of pain. But it builds you up for that process to actually be able to fully do your skills or the performance at the end of the day.
That's right. That's right. That really that's really what practicing is. Like, if we had to define practice, practice is being committed to learn through failure. That's what practicing is, because failure is one of the most valid ways to learn. It is one of the most powerful ways to learn. Failure gives you insight on what you didn't know, and that's really the gap. That's the gap of learning. Failure's like, oh, I didn't expect that was going to happen, but now that's a variable I can consider when I get up again.
Exactly.
And it's whether it's, again, dancing, athleticism, performance art, musical stuff, whatever you're doing in life, it's the failures. Sometimes some of the most beautiful chords I've played on the piano came from a mistake.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, now that's not good for this song, but damn, I'm going to use that for something else.
Or even when singers, when you all hit a note and you expect to hit, oh, that's not the note I wanted, but you carry it into something else, and then
bend that a little bit.
Okay.
Yep, that's it. Oh, I love it.
Bend and wind. So, what strategies have helped you rebuild trust in yourself after experiencing failure or self-doubt?
I know for me, the biggest one, which I think I've kind of mentioned a little bit through this, is that I've detached from just the idea of being a failure. Like, that just doesn't, that sentence doesn't work well for me. Failure is an event, and it's not even, failure sounds so final that I don't think I use it at all when in my own life. Like, I don't ever think I say, oh, I failed. I don't think I say, oh, this was a failure. There probably were some things like Kingdom Central was a failure. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's because, like, I decided to resign because I was an atheist. But other than that, like, I've detached myself from the idea of me being a failure, and I'm more connected to the idea of this didn't work right, or this didn't work as I expected. That's a better way to say this. Yeah. And so this didn't work out as I expected. The strategy that I now use after that detaching is just, now I'm just curious of, okay, what went wrong? So curiosity is my strategy. I'm more curious about why it did not work as expected, as I am upset that it didn't. And that's, again, because I just don't have that mythology of perfection anymore either.
And I think that's good. And that leads into mine, and that is having the idea or living by the concept that we should be a student of life. And so for me, adding new information to my knowledge base gives me more confidence in my competence. And so if I have competence, then my confidence is constantly rising. And so I trust myself. So even if someone may come to me and say this, I say, oh, no, baby, but I got this information because I don't know what you studied.
Right. Yeah.
So let me tell you what I studied. And this is why I came to this conclusion.
That's it. Oh, I love that. It just, the thing you said about just becoming a student of life, I think that's, again, one of those really damaging things that came out of public education. And not all schools did it, but a lot of schools did it, where they made you, they left this impression that education was a temporary situation. Yeah. That it's either, K through 12, or it's K through undergrad, or it's K through graduate. But once you get that last degree, you through learning. And that's really, and watch the correlation with that. If you view your last year in school as the last time you were supposed to be learning, then you likely view any mistake you've made after that as not a lesson, but a failure. Because lessons are the language of learning.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's good.
That is good.
Lessons are, so like, but the moment you begin around, no, I'm just a student of life. I am a student of life, and I don't expect that I'm going to understand everything about life with a high school diploma. I don't expect that my undergrad is going to give me just like the buffet of everything about life. I don't expect a graduate degree. I don't know if there's any degree that I could ever get that would give me everything I need to know about life. So that is good. Seeing yourself as a student of life definitely does give you an internal reminder that I'm learning just like everybody else. And then I don't have this pressure to have it all figured out yet because I ain't seen it all yet. I have not experienced it all yet. And so I shouldn't be holding myself responsible for understanding those things that I've never encountered yet. Because when you do hold yourself accountable to understand things that you've never encountered, you typically become a racist. That's typically how that happens.
Boom, boom.
Oh, man.
I love it. Update the Rolodex of tools of understanding. Yes.
Yes. All right. So trusting yourself doesn't mean ignoring external input, but it does mean knowing when to apply healthy skepticism. How do you strike a balance between listening to advice and trusting your own judgment? It's about using external input to inform your decisions without letting it override your inner guidance, you know. So when Neo was constantly told he was the one, he had to first experience it himself to believe it. Similarly, self-trust grows not when others validate you, but when you validate yourself through action and reflection.
That was the word, right?
Yeah.
Like, yes, come on.
You know,
your neighbor.
you know, like I can tell you you're great all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And I think many of us have been there before, right? Like I told you earlier, like I had people who said, man, you a beast. Oh man, you good. And they could say it all they wanted to.
Right.
I didn't feel that. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, nah, man, this is just the glory of God. God is just using me dynamically. You know, that's all I could think. But then even as a mentor, this was still a hard lesson for me to learn. Because then I'm thinking, if I just speak the right things to these people, if I just keep telling them they're great, and I just keep telling them, no, you can do this, then they're eventually going to do it. And it's like, no, people don't work like that. You know, you can't. Yeah. I know church got us thinking that just speak all the right things, and then that's some of that pseudo psychology that gets slipped in there sometimes as well. Then if just speak all the right things, then people will become that. And it's like, well, no. Your words don't override anybody else's will or wants, right. You know?
Yeah.
And nobody has to want what you want. And so sure, and then watch this, even me calling you, and this probably is the biggest struggle for people. Even me calling you the one or calling you great is still putting you in a box that I predefined. And not something that you create. Yeah, what greatness is to me. Mm-hmm. What I want you to be the one at. You're the one to do this, and that may not be the one thing that you want to do.
Right.
You know, and so many times in good intentions, we'll try to tell people that like, oh no, you're the one, or you're great, or you're this, or you're that, and it feels good to us, but it doesn't always feel good to them because it's not something they believe about themselves yet. You know, and so the question here is, how do you balance external input with trusting your own judgment? How has skepticism of outside influences helped you build stronger self-trust? Okay, so for me, my skepticism barometer about most things is pretty high, which means I'm typically a very skeptical person. When it's something about me, oh, my skepticism barometer is like 100%. So like anybody who comes to me telling me anything about me, I'm immediately right. Like, oh, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You're like, because you like, and that's not even just because I'm like, oh no, I know me better than anybody else. It's just that I know you don't know me at all.
Yeah.
So I know you don't have access to the information you need to have any real insight on me.
Right.
And so I had two different comments on the same video this week, and I'm trying to think which video it was. The video about monotheism leading to atheism. Now, most of you know when I do my content is highly nuanced. But I had one person, because I made a statement about ancient Egyptian influences on the rise of monotheism in Judean early Israelite culture. And so one person, in very good faith, asked the question, how do you know? You know, because most scholars credit Zoroastrianism, you know. But this person did it in a very great way, right? It was good faith. It's like, hey, this video is another banger. As always, you think through these points. so clearly and stuff like that. But I do have a question. The many scholars that I've heard talk about this, they credit Zoroastrianism instead of, such and such. So I'd be interested in knowing how you were able to draw that connection. So most of you know about me. I am incredibly averse to doing long comments in YouTube. Number one, I don't have the time. And number two, I'm not really a fan of that. The utility of that is just like, I don't know. It's just for me. And that could be because I'm old. You know what I'm saying? I'm an old man. Get off my lawn. Do things the way that I used to do them when I was in college and shit. You shouldn't be on you shouldn't be on YouTube having long discussions in the comments. But I say all of that, and I'm still not really going to do that. But for this person, I did, because they did offer in good faith. And I wanted to highlight something. Now, most people I wouldn't. And I'm telling you, I'm sharing this with you to just kind of say, this is how I balance external input with trusting my own judgment. I know what I know, and I know what I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So in this thing, and I'm really good at breaking down what people are saying. But I'll just say the problem, the difficulty for him is a difficulty that you have with a lot of people. And he responded overwhelmingly positive to my response. And I did do a lengthy response and just kind of showed him. And he was like, oh man, thank you. You never disappoint. But the mistake he made is, I've heard these people say this one thing, therefore nothing else can be true except for this one thing. Yeah. And so if you're saying this thing that doesn't align with that, you're saying something different than what they're saying. No, monotheism did strengthen after Zoroastrianism, this is post-exilic, but monotheism existed within Canaanitic culture and Israelite culture before the Persian exile, before the Babylonian exile. So Zoroastrianism then is an influence and is a strong influence, but it is not the origin.
It's not that. And that's what knowing more the details.
But it's knowing what I know. Yeah. Now, that was one comment. Now, the other guy, the other person, he gets on there, and I think he says, this may be your worst take yet, and this and this and this, and you think this and you think that. And I was just like, oh my. And of course, my bot had already poor felled him, And so I'm reading through it, and I'm just like, okay, yep, this person, I will not engage them at all. Number one, you recognize logical fallacies when you see them, and I don't engage with fallacious arguments at all. And so the first thing you did was attack the man. And so, yeah, no, don't do that. But the other thing was that it was just filled with assumptions. That you're assuming that monotheism is the only thing that leads to atheism. I don't think I ever said that at all. Some people can't move past the title of something. They don't understand how marketing works. And so it's like, no, bro, you actually got to look in the package. You know what I'm saying? Right. You got to look in the package. You got to open the wrapper. You got to go deep. I don't exist to be your little candy bar, nigga. I'm sorry. Y'all gonna hear me talk like I talk. Okay, but no, that's how I balance it. I balance it by, I do trust my own judgment. I'm keenly aware of the information that I do know, and I'm keenly aware of the information that I don't know. Now, in the same sense, I'm keenly aware of the information that others might have access to, and the informations that they might not. And again, that played a part in my deconversion. After becoming very clear that, hey, God don't speak, right? God has never audibly spoke. It became very difficult for anybody to ever tell me God spoke to them. Yeah. Because the thing that I know is that God doesn't speak. So that's a small analogy of how that works. I use the things that I know and the things that I don't know to navigate my conversations with everybody. But it often makes it very uncomfortable for people who are trying to have an antagonistic conversation, because I'm pretty much gonna chew you up and spit you out and keep moving on. And I'm gonna be a little annoyed that you wasted my time, because I crave genuine dialogue. And so when you're literally just trying to be a troll or just trying to prove a point, which is not something that I do, I don't want any engagement with you. Again, I am a pragmatist to a fault for many people, but it means if this shit doesn't have any utility for me, I'm uninterested. Please get it the fuck away from me. All right.
Moving on.
Yes.
And so how do we, what does building self-trust look like? And so building self-trust also means being resilient when things don't go as planned. When faced with uncertainty or failure, self-trust is the inner belief that you can handle whatever comes next. And that is one thing about me. Ever since I was little, even as an adult, if things happen, I knew, oh, I'm gonna get over this. This is okay, because I know when I went through something before,
yes,
I was able to work my way out of and keep it going and figure it out. And so I subconsciously always had the mindset that I'm not waiting. Why would I wait on God or somebody who hasn't been here for me to figure it out when I know, oh, I can figure it out myself?
Yeah, I'm gonna,
okay.
And it's like, that's a good thing too, though, because there is a safety in figuring it out, because then I don't have to depend on your interpretation. Because to me, like, that's a place I don't ever want to be again. I don't ever want to be in the place where I have to depend on the way somebody else views this to figure out what's right. No, help me understand it too. You know what I'm saying? Don't just give me the fish. Teach me how to catch these motherfuckers myself, so that if you're not here, I can still eat. And that's how I am about information. So I've never liked this idea when people just like, oh, well, just trust me, that's the right answer. Mm-hmm. No, I want to understand how that is the right answer. I understand why that is the right answer, so I can engage this. And it's not even so that I can engage, so that I can help. I'm not helpful if you're just telling me the answers. Yeah. And if that's your posture in life, I already don't trust you.
And that's why school was, your teacher probably was uncomfortable, because you want to know the process. Oh, yeah. Just because they say you only can do it this way.
Oh, yeah. Oh, like, I'll never forget asking one of my teachers, like how much teachers get paid. And I understand and I was like in middle school. I understand it's a sensitive question, but not for public educators, because it's on the website. You know what I'm saying? It's there. How much teachers get paid. And I asked her to break it down hourly. And she couldn't, because she's like, well, it's salary. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. But numbers can still math. You can still break that. What is that? That you can break that down by 52 weeks, and then break those 52 weeks down by 40. And bam, that's when you have the hourly equivalent. And so this was a math teacher who didn't understand that concept. And who was talking about that recently? I wish I could remember the way they said it. But it was ultimately, we taught like the systems of math, but not the utility of math in school. They said it a lot better than that. And it might have been Neil deGrasse Tyson. No, it was somebody who was interviewing, and they talked about that. But that was just it was very odd for me. Yeah. It was very odd for me. I did get expelled, I did get expelled one time in elementary school, because it was middle school. Teacher asked me, said, Darante, you don't trust teachers, do you? And I said, honestly, I don't. Mm-hmm. And so they wrote my ass up, and I guess
that's another authority figure.
Yeah, but like I like, life was confusing for me as a child. Like, they'd say, be honest, but then when you weren't honest, you'd get in trouble. Mm-hmm. They'd say, if anybody put their hands on you, hit them back. Mm-hmm. But then if you hit them back, they come up to school and say, I told you, don't you be putting your hands on somebody. And then if you go to school again and somebody hits you and you don't hit them back, and you come home and you say, I didn't hit them back. Now, you didn't hit them back. No, you better go up there and beat their ass. I'm going to beat you. And it's just like, whoa, I don't know what the fuck y'all want. You know what I'm saying?
That is hilarious. And so that leads to, it's not about just trusting your decisions, but trusting that you can recover from the consequences.
Yes.
Learn and grow,
Yes.
So simple words there, but
yeah. Just keep moving. Ain't that what Dory said?
Yeah.
Just keep
I was just going to say, come on. 25. I was just going to say, we see it in animals. Think of birds. They figure out, okay, this way is going to be freezing cold around this time. Let some of us travel so we won't.
Oh, now see, that's good, because it just takes us back to kind of our sociological evolution. that, there used to be a time where you couldn't find heat until you found it. And so, when the cold set in, you had to just keep walking until you found what you found. And you didn't feel bad. You didn't feel bad at yourself, that you hadn't found it yet. You were probably mad that it was still cold as fuck, but you realized like, it ain't my fault that it's still cold as fuck. I just haven't got to the warm part yet. So, and I'm not going to get there if I keep getting mad that I'm not there yet. I just got to keep moving. I got to keep moving. And so this has been good, man. I didn't expect us to kind of roll through this quick.
Yeah.
But today's conversation was not just about a singular moment of realization, but a continuous process of learning to trust yourself, especially in the face of uncertainty. Trusting yourself is a skill that takes time, patience, and often requires unlearning old habits of relying too heavily on external validation. This is one of the reasons in the beauty of the community that we're building. We're doing our best not to create models of hierarchy into this, and to focus more so on responsibility than authority. I am responsible for a thing. I have no authority over nobody, because we want to help people, or at least enable people, empower people to find that sense of self. Because honestly, followers are not that helpful. Partners are incredibly helpful. So as we close this series out on trust, remember that the most critical trust relationship you can nurture is the one you have with yourself. When you trust your own ability to navigate complexity, to question assumptions, and to learn from failure, you build resilience and authenticity that empowers you to face the unknown with confidence. Because remember, trusting yourself is not about trusting yourself to always get the right outcomes. It's about trusting yourself to be willing to learn and grow and adjust and adapt along the way. So trust isn't about always knowing what to do, but about understanding that you are capable of figuring it out. And so keep rising and keep trusting in yourself, because you are the one. And when I say the one, I mean the most important voice in your life. And this message isn't to say, hey, don't trust other people, but it's actually to say, make that self-trust a priority so that it makes it easier to trust other people, specifically trusting people, or trustworthy people, if that makes sense.
I love that.
It's good, right?
Yeah,
I've enjoyed this series.
You
are the one. You are the one. But no, like this whole series has been just phenomenal. I think this is one of my favorite, but I'm probably going to say that about all of them. And let's be honest, I'm a little biased. But this one was incredible. I mean, we've talked about trust across so many different dynamics, and I think I was going to say dimensions there, and that feels so much better. Yes. So we've talked about trust through so many different dimensions, and it's just been beautiful. Next week, we're starting a new series. Next week, we're starting a new series, and the name of that series is Drive, Take the Wheel. Take the wheel. Because now that we've talked through our trust issues with others, with the world around us, and our trust issues with ourselves, I want to see if you're confident, if we're all feeling confident enough to actually take the wheel in our own lives. And we all remember, likely, that there was a very popular Christian song that became a very popular Christian saying, Jesus, take the wheel. Take the wheel. In this series, we're going to be having conversations about how we can get that wheel back. Because I know as long as I let that dude take the wheel, like we were literally running into everything. You know what I'm saying? It's zigzagging, not going anywhere. And I think one of the things that we've learned in this series, or that we've highlighted in this series, is that after deconverting and deconstructing, many times it is hard to even figure out what does taking the wheel in my own life mean. How do I even wrestle with my own sense of drive, my own sense of motivation, or my own sense of persistence? And so that's what we're going to start talking about next week. And our first message will be called, What's My Motivation?
I think you've done a good job within your life, but whoever has listened to the interviews and knows parts of Darante's story. I think you've been taking the wheel on all the way.
You know, I take it a little bit like in the early years. I definitely had it, and then the more and more I fell in love with Jesus, I started trying to get used to taking my hands off the wheel, because my hands were apparently, carnal hands. These just man's hands, these man's hands. You need God's hands.
Let his hands take
You don't want like God is the potter, we are the clay,
Yeah.
And so just let him. If you could do this much, imagine what
What
God would do to take your hand off of it. And it's just like, okay, so I took my hand off of it, and God fucked me the fuck up, And so, I've definitely gotten unapologetic about keeping my own hands on my wheel, and then and if you're gonna be in the lane with me, I need to look over and see your hands on the wheel. I don't feel safe.
We also say keep your hands to yourself.
Yeah,
they don't tell.
Keep your hands to. But that's why they ain't on the wheel, because you're too busy touching yourself. Look at that nasty self. Get your hands off yourself and touch the wheel. Put your hands back on the wheel. Let me stop. Listen.
Oh, Aspen came here. You can say hi. But thank you so much for everyone joining in for us today. Thank you for just constantly supporting with just showing up, because obviously all are welcome, and you just showing up. Look at Aspen.
Really, dude.
Hey, buddy. He always got to come in. Always got to come in. But we appreciate you all. Man, also, I wanted to point out, last week we had episode 4 of the Ex-Pastor call-in show, and it was awesome.
Oh, yes.
So for all who came and supported that last week, we appreciate you. Go back and watch it if you missed it, and stay tuned for the next one in November.
Yes.
I know that's going to be another great one. So consider joining us again next week. Bring a friend. We love to have. Don't keep stuff stingy to yourself.
Yeah, don't be stingy. Don't be stingy.
Don't be stingy with it. Make sure you also like, subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell so you can get alerted any and every time we go live. We love your comments. So after the video, the live is done, go back and comment, because you don't see the live chats pop up right away. So we definitely appreciate that.
Snipping on me.
For those of you who already joined the community, thank you. We appreciate you. If you're not in Discord, go ahead and join our Discord. We put the link earlier in the chat. We can drop it again for you. But we are so welcoming for others to have joined who have not joined yet. We appreciate your continued support. So we changed from volunteers to using community
contributors.
Contributors.
Thank you, Kurt.
Yes. And so if you want to contribute to this community, please feel free to click the link. I know we put the link earlier, I believe, but we'll have some more.
You can contribute without becoming tribute,
Yes. And so thank you for those who have bought our merch already. If you haven't checked it out, we have the link in the chat as well, so you can check out the store and share this with everybody that you can. Everybody who's willing, all that are willing, share.
All right, awesome sauce. All right, so each of us at some point, you still missed a whole part.
Yeah, I was going to do it on pause, but if you value these conversations that we are doing, we made it easy for you to support, obviously through Patreon, Super Chats, purchasing merch, or through any of the links that are in the description. We definitely appreciate it. Any financial support that you do, of course, is tax deductible, so don't forget that.
Yes.
Will be used, and we use it to improve the quality, the quantity of the content. We use the financial help for development of support resources, networks, projects to accelerate people-centric community development as far as we can. But even, again, for you showing up, liking and sharing the video, and commenting, even during the lives, we greatly appreciate that as well.
And now this brings us to the finale of today's today's conversation, today's session, which I've been struggling with this for a while, because I don't know if it was Norbert or if it was Pastor Blunt that jumped in one Sunday and said, "Where's the altar call?" You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which, and it's funny because an altar call at the end of the day is just a call to action, but I've been working on this for a while. Like, I want to make sure that we're being intentional about the invitation to connect and do community with us. And so we've put a little more thought into it today. Each of us at some point in our lives has asked the question, what difference can I make? What impact can I have in a world that's sometimes overwhelming? Maybe you've asked that same question here as you've reflected on the conversations we've had. But here's the truth. None of us are powerless. None of us is too small or insignificant to make a difference. Each of us have something unique to offer, and each of us have the ability to grow, to build, and to create the world that we want to live in. The question isn't whether or not you can make a difference. The question is, are you ready? Are you ready to connect? Are you ready to commit? And are you ready to bring yourself into a space that's committed to making that difference?
We invite you, wherever you are on your journey, to become a part of something bigger, not to follow, but to lead alongside us, not to conform, but to bring your unique voice to this community. We are not a space where answers are handed down to you, but we are a space where questions are explored, where collaboration takes precedence over compliance, and where growth happens because we support and challenge each other. If you've been looking for a place where you can bring your whole self, your intellect, your passion, your experiences, then this is it. Joining this community isn't about agreeing with everything, nor is it about abandoning your individuality. It's about making a commitment to yourself and to others to engage fully, to grow intentionally, and to do your best work as a human being. Here, we challenge ourselves to think critically, to act with empathy, and to build something better. Not because someone else is telling us to, but because we know it's the right thing to do. Every great change starts with the decision to show up fully. Will you show up? Will you be a part of the solution?
And not to sound too much like an old Baptist preacher, but now is your moment. If you've been moved by our conversations, if you feel a fire within you to connect and contribute, we welcome you to take that next step. Join us not just as a member, but as a partner in progress, as someone committed to being part of the change. Whether you're new here or you've been attending a while, consider this your invitation to be your best self and to do your best work. There's no need for dogma, no need for superstition, just the shared commitment to each other and to the future that we're building together. So if you're ready to step into a community where you're seen, where you're valued and supported, we invite you to connect, commit, and grow with us. Together, we'll not only change ourselves, but we'll change the world. It starts here. It starts with you. Are you ready to be the bridge? I like that.
On, yes.
I got into the little Obama flow at the end.
Are you ready
together,
to be the bridge?
We not only change ourselves, but we change the world with Sasha, Malia. No, okay. I always do the same time. But listen, if you've decided to accept that invitation and get connected with Bridge City, let us know. We're going to be dropping the forms in the chat.
Yes. Are you ready to get actively involved with Bridge City Global? We have our online progressive thinking. We are people-centric and life-affirming community. Let us know. If we have a form that you can let us know by. And these forms are very short and easy to do. So don't feel any any pressure with it. We definitely appreciate to see you and hear from you. If you want to learn more about our work beyond the bridge, visit our website, which is always under construction. So keep that in mind. We're always adding, editing, taking away, and things of that nature. But DLDD.us, very easy. He's DL. I'm DD.
That's how that
Darnaya
works.
Darice. And it's first and middle name because somebody said, don't call him Lamar. That's that's his last name. Why you calling him by his last name? Which is so weird. And I'm like, poor, but
like
no.
it's not my last name.
No, right?
But
Like, it's okay.
They did though.
And lastly, join us on Discord, which Discord has become our central campus for our growing online community. We definitely appreciate everyone who's already in there, joining the conversation, getting to know each other, and networking. YouTube is a great doorway to the community, but Discord is where we actually do the work of community. So we're going to drop that link in the chat as well. And that, my friend,
is that it?
Yes.
Did we make it to the end? Did y'all enjoy this? Have y'all enjoyed this series? Please let us know in the comments and the chat. You can share this series as a playlist. I think the playlist is already built on the channel. If it's not, it will be soon. Forgive me, but I think it is. And it's funny because I know the playlist for the next one is already built. But no, I do think this one is built. So you can share this whole playlist if you thought these conversations were valuable and will be to help somebody kind of navigate their own trust issues, their sense of trust, and to be able to get that sense of clarity and sense of safety back within themselves, which then again, that's what's going to help. That's what's going to help make it easier for them to engage with community, whether it be our community or some other community. The big point is we all need community, right? Yeah. All right. So I think that's all we have for today. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with us. Of course, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, and do all of those great things. We love y'all so much. Until next time, keep rising. And of course, and until next time, be the bridge. We'll holler.
I was spending my life in the servitude of misunderstandings of people I loved. Giving it all, it was never enough. Because of the fall, I could never get up. I moved on from their misunderstandings. I'm no longer standing under them. I was drowning, now I swim, 'cause I found the strength within. I don't need your absent friend, 'cause I got this, yeah. 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 Depraved and deprived, I was living their lives, lost in the moment with truth sacrificed. Voices of plenty that never seemed right, distractions and visions that altered my sight. I moved on from their misunderstandings. I'm no longer standing under them. I was drowning, now I swim, 'cause I found the strength within. I don't need your absent friend, 'cause I got this, yeah. 'Cause I got this, yeah. 'Cause I got this, yeah.